Good morning, welcome, 1,000 welcomes. And we are meditating today on a topic that I initially titled Positive Adaptation. And then as I was putting together the scripture readings last night, the phrase creative adaptation also came to me. So I'm just inviting you to tune in and to choose one of those. To choose, as I listen to this meditation, I'm giving my inner light permission to connect with and to activate within myself positive adaptation, if that's what you're feeling called to, or creative adaptation, if that's what you're feeling called to. And so just sort of notice inwardly and silently, I connect consciously with the energy and the awareness of positive adaptation or of creative adaptation. And notice which one fills you with more joy, which one fills you with more ease. And this is part of our new series, which we're launching. And that series is How to Navigate Change. So, woohoo! How to navigate change. And so there is immediately just an observation to share with all of us that our eternal, expanded, true, ever-free self doesn't ever have to navigate change. There is a prayer of self-realization which says, I am that I am. There is no change in me. And so on one level of our beingness, of our knowingness, of our truth, there is no change. There is no going, there is no coming, there is no arising, there is no departing. There is only, I am that I am. There is no change in me. And so that is the level of realization absolute. And realization absolute, it's here. And if you're listening to this, I'm pointing to my heart. And I'm not just pointing to the human heart. I'm pointing to the expanded heart, which is completely one with the source of all that is. So right here within each of us, and if it helps, put your hand on your heart, allow yourself to feel this. Deeper than the human heart, it includes the human heart, but deeper than the human heart, there is the expanded heart, the spiritual heart, the eternal heart, which is always absolutely one with the source of all that is. And when we are in contact with that, we are in contact always with that in us which is unchanging. I am that I am. There is no change in me. On this level, there's no fear. There's no sorrow. There's no pain. There's no separateness. There's no loss. There's no blame. There's no shame. There's no neglect. There's no abandonment. There's none of the painful things that it's possible to experience in time and space. And so if you like, you're welcome to keep your hand there or just energetically to feel your hand there. But please remember, we activated this in our opening meditation. This is the energy of soul victory, victory of soul. Allowing our human selves to connect with that in us which is unchanging. Keep that teaching in mind, because I'm about to share with you a teaching from the Bhagavad Gita, which says, and not stagnation, but infinite divinity is thy nature. Not stagnation, but infinite divinity is thy nature. This tells us if we are here in time and space, we will be pouring ourselves forward in ever new ways. We will always be navigating change because we're not stagnation. We're infinite divinity. Congratulations. So how to navigate change is always, how can I remember that this change, the painful parts of it and the joyful parts of it, is a gift of infinite divinity, a gift of that in me which is unchanging. Remember that, and then allow myself to navigate change from that awareness. And what happens then is there's no fear. There's continual joy and aliveness and vibrancy. And it's like the waves of change that come in time and space, we just surf them. And we have so much fun surfing those waves of change in time and space. When we remember, okay, this is my infinite divinity, how much fun can we have surfing this wave of change? Knowing that it's our human self, it's our vehicle that is capable of navigating through time and space that experiences the waves of change. And our eternal self, I am that I am, there is no change in me, never for one moment is shaken or distressed or upset or disturbed by anything in time or space. And so the next teaching is from the Buddha, the one who is awake. And he says to us, fantastic one-line teaching, there is no perturbance in Buddhas. Whew. So allow that to really sink into our awareness. And just use it as an indicator, as a neutral, non-judgmental, cheerful, spiritually honest check-in. Has there been any perturbance in me? Because if so, that's the aspect of me that is not being fully awake. That is the aspect of me that is giving me a reminder. I'm invited to bring love and understanding to that aspect of myself that has been experiencing perturbance. And notice what happens. As soon as you reach out with love and understanding to the aspect of yourself that's been experiencing perturbance, it resolves. There's no battle anymore. And spiritual victory is here. Soul victory is here. And so one thing you'll notice, I've been sort of saying this all along, I like to say it in different ways, there's only the one. We're never battling with another. Anything that we have ever been battling with, it's pointing us back. Something within ourselves where we are invited to bring love and understanding. When we bring love and understanding with ourselves, resolution unfolds in time and space. Fear vanishes in time and space. And the next step forward in clarity, in joy, in freedom will arise. It will share it with us in our awareness. So Jesus alludes to this same spiritual realization, this same absolute realization of soul victory. And he says, enter into the kingdom of heaven by doing the will of my Father, which is in heaven. And so we enter into the kingdom of heaven when we align with divine will. When we align with what is highest and best for ourselves, for the light within us, the soul within us, that will also support and be highest and best for the light within others, for the soul within others. And we will be in the kingdom of heaven while being in time and space. Absolute realization, realization absolute, also includes all of this. This is the absolute. Dancing, singing, shining through this vehicle. And so we're just inviting ourselves to do that as joyfully and as consciously, as gladly, as freely, as willingly, as generously as we can. And Jesus says, when you hear this teaching of mine and do it, that is like being a wise one, building your house upon a rock. So he's saying you get in touch with that which can never crumble. When you align with divine will, when you are in harmony with the laws of energy, the laws of oneness, you're building your house upon a rock. And then no matter what the weather is, if the rains come, if the floods come, if the winds blew, your house is steady because it's founded upon a rock. And so your soul is always steady. It is that rock. Everything else can crumble and fall. What remains is light and love and kindness and understanding. And that's what we take with us forever. When we're in the body, that's ours, and when we move beyond the body, that's ours. So be here in the body every single moment that you possibly can. It is an incredible gift. And also know that in some ways what each of us is presenting always, to the soul, to the divine, is an answer. How much love have you created? How much understanding and wisdom and kindness have you shared? That's the measure, the measureless measure, which we are always being asked to come into harmony with. And so I have 3 stories. We'll see if we have time for all 3 of these stories. They're all true. They're all so beautiful. And they are all about victory over oneself. Right in the midst of daily life, just demonstrating victory over oneself, living from that soul realization of what is highest, what is best. And you'll notice what happens is, from that, creative adaptation arises. From that, positive adaptation naturally unfolds spontaneously without reaching for it. And the script of what is possible changes. So what becomes possible to express in time and space is completely new. It's fresh. And so one of these stories comes from a little league baseball game. The league is for 10-year-olds to 12-year-olds, and it's a championship game, so it's like a finals game. And there's this little boy at bat, and there's a pitcher, and the pitcher throws a really hard, really fast ball, and it hits the player who is at bat right in the head. And it knocks his helmet off. And the force of it is so strong that he falls to the ground. And then you see him, and he's sort of curled up in a fetal position. He's got his arms over his head, and you can see him, he's stunned. And there's like this intake of breath. The crowd just sort of draws this breath, and they're waiting to see what's next. And then the boy who's been hit gets up, and the crowd just sort of roars. And then the next thing you see, he has walked to first base. And so he's standing on first base. That's the next thing that you see. The next thing you see after that, he takes off his helmet and he throws it on the ground. And he walks over toward the pitcher. And the pitcher has been unable to look up from the ground. The pitcher has been so devastated by this mistake that he made that his head is down. You can't see his eyes at all this entire time. And so the pitcher is there, and he's just like stuck. He's frozen, and you can feel the shame and the pain that he's experiencing, the way he's like caught in that self-blame. And the one who was hit by his pitch naturally, effortlessly comes over and gives him an adult hug and says, "Hey, you're doing great." And the crowd is wiping tears away from their eyes. And the announcer, who wants to give the highest possible compliment he can, he says, "He is a stud." So whatever your word is for the highest possible compliment, he completely flipped the script of what is expected, of what is possible. And so if you know baseball, you know that it would be within sort of the normal script. If a pitcher had thrown a pitch that hit a player, it would be the normal script for the pitcher to go check out and make sure that the batter was okay. This little kid who was hit by that pitch completely shook it off. He was so calm and okay within himself. He let go completely of having been hit by that hard ball. He let go completely of having been knocked off his feet. And he just saw, that's a person who's in pain. That's a person I could help. And so he completely let go of the past. And when we are able to let go of the past pain, we're able to move forward in entirely, unbelievably beautiful ways that cause people to wipe away tears. And the reason why they were wiping away tears is because the kingdom of heaven was becoming visible in that space through that boy, 10 to 12 years old, just able to shake it off and to say, what's next? That happened, but it's behind me. What's next? Here we are. how can we move forward together in the most joyful, kind, glad, freeing way possible? And so notice, like, that's the energy of positive adaptation, creative adaptation, unprecedented and yet completely natural. So once you see it, you say, of course. And so each of us is invited in our daily lives, wherever we have been hit by a hardball and knocked off our feet, get back up. Shake off the pain. Don't keep carrying the pain into the future. Let it go. Leave it. Let it dissolve into the light. And just ask, how can I move forward? And what that little boy did so effortlessly, not only how can I move forward, how can everyone move forward in a way that creates joy and freedom and connects with that pure energy of possibility and positivity. And so he was victory of soul, just naturally, right in the midst of daily life. And then another example of victory of soul, naturally right in the midst of daily life. This is this really charming and adorable video of a dad who was teaching his 5-year-old daughter to skateboard. And he was teaching her on a half pipe. So I don't know if you know what a half pipe is. It's a really steep U-shaped ramp. So it's double-sided, U-shaped, and steep. And there's no friction. And so you go really fast as you're learning to navigate this. And so the first thing you see is his 5-year-old daughter goes for it, and she slams. Full body slams. And you can see the dad is watching, and you can see his heart basically like pops out of his chest. And he runs over to her, and he holds her, he folds her in his arms, and he says, "Did it hurt? Or were you scared?" Great question to ask yourself. Anytime you have a slam, did it hurt? Or was I scared? And then the next thing you notice, like after he's given her hugs, she's back up. She's at the top of the ramp again. And he's like, you know what? It can be scary if you've had a fall. And you don't have to do this. He's like, you can do this if you want, but you don't have to. And she says, I'm scared, and I really want to. And so then the next thing you see is he's sort of serving as like these dad training wheels, and he holds her and guides her kind of like down and up and down and up. And then you see her, and she's at the top of the ramp, and she says, will you catch me if I fall? And he says to her, I will be here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here. The divine parent is not less here for each of us. Wherever we are afraid of falling, the divine parent is not less present for each of us, wherever we are. And so the next thing you see is she is joyfully navigating by herself. And he says to her at the end, I just want to acknowledge that was a really brave thing that you did, because you felt afraid and you moved forward. And so that joy, that creative adaptation, she just demonstrated it, that positive adaptation, to be able to get up from a slam, to be able to be honest with how you are feeling. Did I feel hurt? Did I feel afraid? Was it both? And do I want to keep moving forward beyond the fear? And the divine will be here and here and here and here and here and here and here, wherever it is where we are moving forward next. And so we're inviting ourselves to connect with that. And then the third story, so this is a story from a 19-year-old. And it's a 19-year-old who was standing outside. Stay with me on this one, because this is a big fall at first. This is a 19-year-old who was standing outside waiting to see some friends, summer day, and he got hit by a truck. And the truck impact was such that he flew through the air more than 90 feet. And when he landed, the only part of him physically that was not injured was his hands. He broke his neck in 2 places. He broke his jaw in 2 places. His legs were broken. His body was broken. And this was some time ago. I think they have different emergency room protocols. So don't expect this to happen in the case of injury today. But when he arrived in the ER, the doctors expected him not to live more than an hour or two. So they did nothing. They just let him sit there in his bed. He was just by himself. And they were just kind of like, okay, he only has an hour or two, we're going to leave him. So he had this inner guidance. This inner voice within him said, keep breathing slowly, rhythmically, deeply, and you will make it. And your making it will be based upon your continuing to breathe slowly, rhythmically, deeply. And so he did. He breathed himself to life. He breathed himself all through that night, and the next morning they came in and they're like, you're still here? They're like, we'd better try to set your broken legs. And there were various other medical errors, which I'm sure would not happen today because protocols would be followed. But so essentially the long story, and I'm condensing it, is he had to lie immobile on his back in the hospital for 3 months. And they would undo his casts and look at his legs, and the bones in his legs were like jelly. That's how weak they were. And they were like, yep, you're not walking again. And he kept having this image of himself walking again. His soul kept showing him an image of himself walking again. And so he kept holding on to this image, even though he was receiving different advice from an outer level. And so after 3 months, he was able to make his way into a wheelchair. He kept holding this image on. And so he wheeled himself up and down the halls at great speed. Remember, he was 19 when this was happening. And then at a certain point, he was able to graduate to crutches. The first time he put his weight on crutches, he actually screamed. He couldn't support weight on his legs. But he gradually built up strength and built up the ability to navigate with crutches. At some point, they did finally remove the casts from his legs, and he said he almost felt like crying. His legs were so thin. They were as thin as willow branches. And he gradually taught himself to walk again, and it took a year. This whole process took a year. So just a couple things. He was able to learn how to walk again when he let go of his anger and frustration and of the feeling that it was unfair that he had experienced this accident. Until he let go of his anger and frustration and feeling that it had been unfair for him to experience this, he wasn't able to walk again. So a really key part of his healing was moving past anger, moving past frustration, moving past the feeling of unfairness. Another level of healing that he finally arrived at, he took responsibility and allowed himself to remember that while he was standing there prior to the accident, waiting for his friends, an inner voice within himself was telling him, go home. You need to go home right now. Go home. He was 19. He wanted to see his friends. It was a summer day. He was like, I'm not listening to that voice of soul. I'm staying right here. And so he had to take responsibility for not listening to the guidance that had been present. And I want to quickly say just a couple of things about this. Our soul never abandons us. And so even though his soul had given him guidance that would have calmly allowed him to move forward in a different way, and he ignored that guidance, his soul stayed with him. And so his soul kept giving him guidance, breathe, 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 which kept him going through the night. You can walk, showing him those images of himself walking again. And he eventually became able to walk very comfortably, to be a hiker, to be very comfortable in his physicality. And he said that the whole experience taught him deep compassion for people who experience pain, and the ability to forgive and not judge whatever another goes through physically. And so I will quickly just add this. If a soul has chosen otherwise. His soul chose to experience that accident and then come back from it and be able to walk again. But if a soul has chosen otherwise, to experience an accident and not regain the ability to walk again after that, that soul is no less whole. That soul is no less present. That soul is equally, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Hey, you're doing great. So free ourselves and everyone else of judgment. Whatever anyone is experiencing in the realm of time and space, that is something that their eternal light is navigating in the vehicle they're currently in. They are learning. They are growing in their soul as much as they're possibly able to grow. And what we can do for ourselves is get back up, move forward through the fear, leave behind the pain, keep the wisdom, allow ourselves to be open to entirely unprecedented ways of thinking and speaking and behaving and choosing and acting, and hold on to that image. No matter what the outer reality is, inwardly, the soul is always striding forward in the light. Thank God, and God bless us all.